Hello! In this video I'm going to show you how to get started painting with the dry brush technique. It's a popular technique among street portrait artists, but is still rather unknown in the art community as a whole. So I like to take it upon myself to spread the word on this beautiful technique and show you how you can use it. As you can see here already, it has the feel of a charcoal or a pencil drawing, with the big advantage that creating smooth gradients is super easy and therefore quick, hence the popularity among street artists. So if you like that aesthetic, or if you're a mixed media artist always looking to try new things, then hang on, I'll tell you what tools you need to get started. I'll try to make it as simple as possible in this video. In a future video I will talk more in depth about what materials to use, where the differences lie and all that, but today I'm just going to give a quick recommendation so you can start experimenting. First of all, the surface that I work on here is watercolor paper. My personal preference is hot pressed paper, but really that's up to you and what you have. Any watercolor paper or even thick drawing paper will do. As you work with very thin oil paint layers, you won't need to worry about priming the paper first, so no gesso is needed for this. Then of course you'll need a few brushes. Anything that works with oil color or acrylics will do, and yeah, this is open to experimentation. Just make sure that the bristles are smooth, but at the same time not too long to not lose control when you press them onto the paper or sweep them across the paper. The next item is a paper towel or toilet paper or anything that will soak up the excess oil paint, which in fact you can just put directly onto the paper towel as well. This blotch here is all you need, and it's actually too much for what I'm doing today. And yes, just one color is fine. Black is an obvious choice, but of course you could try any other color that you want. And the last set of items that I deem necessary is your assortment of erasers. So here I have a normal rubber eraser, a kneaded eraser, and an eraser in pencil form. And you'll need those for creating highlights. And that's all you need to get started. So let's just take a look at how to use those tools. So first of all, you take your paper towel with the oil paint and dab your brush very lightly on that blotch. Actually, it's a good idea to not dip it right into that blotch, but take the paint from the side where it's already in a thinner layer. And then you'll try to evenly distribute the oil paint onto the brushes, onto the bristles, which you do by sweeping the brush across your paper towel. The other very important thing that that does is taking out any excess paint. Because as the name suggests, you're working with a practically dry brush. You might be surprised how much paint is still in the brush when you assume it's clean. Here I actually still have quite a lot of paint on my brush, so that first layer is already rather dark. Yes, that's a dark layer. The way it works is that you put down very light layers and darken them by just going over them as often as needed. And that way you'll get the really smooth gradients. The way I like to paint is to go over all areas of the painting first, with the first few layers, and gradually build up the painting. But I know other people like to finish one section before moving on to the next, and obviously that's totally up to you. Lots of people also start with the darkest area, like the pupil of the eye, to have a reference for how dark or light the other areas should be. And that's really about how you like to work. I usually begin with a bigger brush to lay down midtones and already define areas of shadow and light. And then usually with my smaller brushes, I will work out the details with higher contrast. So my rule of thumb is the smaller the brush, the more paint I leave on the bristle. That way you also get sharper edges, which is what I want for the eyelashes, for example. As for highlights, you basically use the white of the paper. You can erase the oil paint from the paper if it's in thin layers. The darker the area, the more trouble you'll have to lift off the paint, but I'm sure you'd have guessed that. If you need to add very bright spots and very dark areas, like the highlights of the pupil, you might instead of the pencil eraser also try using white gouache or white oil paint or a white pencil or pen for that. But with bigger areas, it's important to keep them light from the beginning. If you need to lift paint off of bigger areas, then that's what the kneaded eraser is good for. Just press it onto the area you want to lighten, lift it up again, and there you go. Don't rub it on the paper or you will create harsh edges, which are hard to eliminate again. So even if you go over them with your brush again to darken them again, you'll always kind of see those edges. So you have to be very careful with erasing. If you just want to lift off paint but not really create harsh edges, press your kneaded eraser on there and lift it up without moving it much. That's definitely something you should try out first if you're not too familiar with that. So try it on a scrap piece of paper first, just to make sure you know what you're doing there. And that's it. That's basically all you need to know to get started. Maybe one more thing. Since you're using very little paint, you can get away with cleaning your brush with just soap and water. I have special brush soap, but as far as I know, normal dish soap works too. I once read that the brush soap has ingredients to take care of the bristles, but I'm not so sure about that exactly. Either way, what I'm trying to say is if you're not a traditional oil painter and you don't have all the supplies and would like to try this out, then just buying the paint will be enough. You don't need to worry about mediums and paint thinners and all of this stuff that you usually associate with oil paint. And yes, that's it. I hope you like this tutorial and maybe I could inspire you to give this a try if you haven't yet. I'll be sure to make more videos about this topic in the future, so if you're interested, check back on this channel. As for now, happy dry brushing, or, just creating in whatever way you like. Bye!